Good evening, members of the public, staff and councillors. Again, I apologise for starting the meeting a little bit late. And just so everyone's aware, we're still having some technical problems, so the meeting won't be live streamed until we can allay those issues, but the meeting will be recorded, and that's okay in terms of legislation. Just for the directors and the other councillors, the screen won't be able to be moved, it will remain as it is. So you either have to follow on the hard copy in the old-fashioned way or use your personal devices. So I now declare the meeting open at 7:06 p.m. and today's date is Monday the 14th of April 2025, and I declare the Ordinary Council meeting of that month now open. I'll advise all members of the gallery that tonight's meeting will be live streamed and also audio recorded. You'll notice that in front of me is a timer on the front table. That is to assist people with making their deputations and making their statements, and I'll talk more about that when we get to that in the agenda. As I said, the meeting will be live streamed this evening once we get our technical issues rectified, but the meeting will also be audio recorded. So I would ask that if you're asking a public question or making a statement or deputation to the meeting this evening, we request that you take a seat at the table in front of yourselves. And members of the public are reminded that no other audio-visual recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed. That brings us on to agenda item number 1. Agenda item number 1 is attendance and apologies. There are no apologies or leave of absences. That brings us on to agenda item number 2. Agenda item number 2 is public question time. Agenda item 2.1 is responses to previous public questions taken on notice. They are in the agenda. Normally you'd be able to see that up on the screen, but as I said, with our technical difficulties, that won't be available at the moment. But we have got questions received from Mrs. Lee Bond, Mr. Brian Manning, and those responses have been provided to those ratepayers and also are reflected in the agenda. That brings us on to public questions, which is 2.2. I would now like to ask Carl Titulis, I hope I got that right, Carl, please come forward and ask your 3 questions.
Okay, I've got a brief context here for the 3 questions. 3 questions refer to item 10.1.4, a Brickwood Reserve Environmental Offset Proposal as part of the Byford Rail Extension, and there's a code for that, SJ2201. With reference to Figure 1, page 59 of the OCM agenda, 14th of April 2025, that 11.4 hectares offset management area is on the west side and downslope from the Graceford Hostel complex and its wastewater treatment infrastructure. That infrastructure reticulates nutrient-enriched treated wastewater onto an area that has runoff and seepage west and south into adjacent bushland that includes 11.4 hectares of the offset management area, particularly the southern half of the offset area. Question 1. What are the SJ Shire plans to get baseline data for the offset area conditions as relates to bushland condition and groundwater quality and levels to help track improvement over time?
Thank you for your first question, and just for the minute taker, Madam Secretary, I had public question time commencing at 7:08 p.m. I do apologise, I didn't put that on the record. Thank you for your question. I would ask the Director of Development Services to please provide a response.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. President. So, this work for Brickwood Reserve was completed by the Public Transport Authority, who engaged consulting botanists and ecologists in September and October of the year 2021 to undertake a 2-phase detailed flora and vegetation assessment of the reserve. This work had a key focus to establish baseline data for the vegetation unit in order to inform the offset strategies and assess implementation through monitoring and review during the 20-year offset period. Additionally, groundwater data was obtained via the Perth groundwater map.
Thank you for your response, Director. Mr Tillis, I would ask you to please ask your second question, please.
All right. What are the nutrient legacy and ongoing nutrient release mitigation plans to help ensure the most cost-effective bushland/wetland regeneration and maintenance of the offset management area that is naturally a low nutrient adapted environment?
Thank you for your second question. Again, I would ask the Director of Development Services to please provide a response.
Thank you for your question, and through you, Mr President. So in terms of approaching the offset strategies for Brickwood Reserve, Curtin University has been engaged by the Public Transport Authority to undertake research into the restoration of SCP-3A TEC, which is the threatened ecological community pursuant to condition 6-5 bracket 1 of Ministerial Statement 1183. So this will include considerations and monitoring of native vegetation cover over time, particularly understory improvement, and any changes in the Kaigiri scale ratings of such vegetation. This will provide the basis to monitor and assess any impacts that may be associated with nutrient level changes in the groundwater level beneath the reserve.
Thank you, Director. Mr Tillis, I would ask you to ask your third question, please.
Right. What will the Shire do to build an effective, positive working environmental stewardship relationship with Graceford to better manage nutrient and weed ingress issues from the fire mitigation area on the west margin? And in brackets there, that does also include the wastewater infrastructure. So timeline for that sort of thing.
Thank you for your third question. Again, I'd ask the Director of Development Services to please provide a response.
Thank you, Mr President. Thank you for the question. The Shire strives to have a positive working relationship with external stakeholders in managing our environmental assets. Officers will continue to work with Graceford in how best to manage the irrigation area, which also is required to perform a hazard separation zone to assist in managing the threat of bushfire.
Thank you, Director, and thank you for your three questions, Mr Titleist.
Mr President, am I able to ask some questions of Mr Titleist, please?
Yes.
After hearing the responses from the Director of Development Services, Mr Titleist, are you appeased or do you still have concerns?
Well, with question number 2, I think the mark was missed to a certain extent, because with a nutrient input as a constant disturbing agent, and even the legacy issues, basically there's going to be part of the ecology that will not do well there. And so in order to not waste time and money planting things that are going to die, it is better to identify those parts of the ecology that can stand the higher nutrient load and have like a transition area to absorb the nutrients as they come in, and that can then help to shield the more sensitive parts of the ecology that are downslope from that. So it's no good just monitoring and watching it die. You need to be able to actively intervene and use special research to identify those plants that can, from a wetland context, that can do that work without, with minimal additional effort. And so that for me would be more cost effective than planting things that are doomed to die because they're sort of low nutrient adapted, and you need something that can live with that. I know one particular species that can handle elevated nutrient loads. It's the dwarf she oak, But that's just something I heard from years and years ago where this sort of issue was identified. But people like Michael Just from Curtin University, I think he is, might be able to, might know himself or identify people who can identify those plants to have like a buffer zone to help protect the sort of the complete community that will have plants in there that can't take up that can't deal well with elevated nutrient loads. Because if that's ignored, then what happens in the spaces where the nutrients, the excess nutrients kill things off, that's where the weeds will show up. And if you just kill the weeds, the more weeds will come. Whereas if you intercept some of the nutrients, then that manages the problem. And then there'll come a time which, and I think you have identified to me that there's going to be, the wastewater is going to be piped. But between now and then, there are reasonable strategies to put in place for nature to help us do the work.
Thank you, Mr Tillis. We might have to stop it there because we are pushed for time, but thank you very much for answering the question. Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Thank you. That brings us on to the next item on the agenda, still under 2.2 public question time. I'd like to ask Ms Rebecca Lafar-Smith to come forward and ask her questions, please. And I did neglect to ask the previous speaker to state their name, but just for the record, can you please state your name and your suburb of residence, please?
Thank you, Mr President. My name is Rebecca Lafar-Smith and I'm a resident of Byford. Most of my questions are about the library. I'm going to start with number 1. I sent an email to Councillor Duggan regarding urgent issues with the library services. She acknowledged having read the email in full on February 27th. What actions have been taken following that email to improve the situation, and were other councillors made aware of the situation?
Thank you for your first question, Ms Lafar-Smith. I would ask the Director of Community Engagement to please provide a response.
Thank you, Ms Lafar-Smith, for the question. The Shire values the library services, and we have recently made some changes in the reporting structure with the new Manager of Community Development to be responsible for the library service. If you have any further concerns, I'm happy to meet with you to discuss those in person.
I don't believe that answers the question. I was specifically asking what Councillor Duggan did in relation to my email.
That question was answered by the Director of Community Engagement.
Can you read the question again? He says we're acting on the library, but the question was in regards to what Councillor Duggan specifically did with my email.
Okay, I'll be happy now for you to ask your second question, please, Ms Lafar-Smith.
I was involved in major edits on the library strategic roadmap in January. What progress has been made with surveying the community and finalising that roadmap?
Thank you for your second question, Ms Lafar-Smith. Again, I'd ask the Director of Community Engagement please provide a response.
The development of a library roadmap was identified as an action in the library's service team plan for the 24-25 financial year. The roadmap has been drafted and will be going out for community consultation once the reporting structure changes have been implemented, as per my response to question 1.
Do you have a date for that?
Sorry, thank you, Director. Ms Lafar-Smith, would you like to ask your third question, please?
There have been discussions of a new Byford Town Centre, including a new venue for the library with a civic master plan prepared in July 2022. Will library staff and the public have an opportunity to offer feedback on any plans for that library so that it is designed to meet the needs of our growing community?
Thank you for your third question. Again, I'd ask the Director of Community Engagement please provide a response.
Community and staff engagement are vital to the success of any new library space, and we're committed to ensuring both voices are heard throughout the planning process for the new future Byford Library. The Shire's Community Infrastructure Developer Contribution Plan, revision number 3, which was reviewed and adopted by Council in July 2023, identifies a new Byford Library to be delivered in 2033, subject to grants and funding. When planning commences for this project, community and staff feedback will be sought to ensure the facility design meets the needs and expectations of all users.
Thank you, Mr.
Ms Lafar-Smith, I have looked towards the Deputy Shire President. She's happy to give you some more information in regards to your first question.
Thank you.
Would you like her to do that now?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Duggan.
Thanks, Mr. President. Thanks, Rebecca. As I said to you, I had received your email and I had read it a number of times. What stuck with me, and if you don't mind me reading
Absolutely.
a part, I'm a casual library officer, and as you can imagine, it makes me a little insecure coming forward with this because I believe it could be grounds for termination based on my contract. With that in mind, my discussions that I had with...
May I just interrupt?
No, you can't. My
Well, I
apologies.
just want to state that I am no longer employed by the Shire.
Sorry, ma'am, I have...
Sorry.
The Deputy Shire President has gone above and beyond to answer your first question. So can you please give her the opportunity to do so?
sorry.
Thank you.
So with that in mind, rather than share your email with other members of council and with the executive team, I took it upon myself to discuss the situation personally and with the CEO without mentioning your name.
Thank you.
And as you can imagine, also being a little vague to protect your position. And I received a response from that, and I'm more than happy to discuss that response with you. It was not, there was a significant amount of information that was shared, but it was sufficient for me to then put the matter to bed that you had discussed. But as I say, I'm more than happy to discuss that with you. Perhaps it would be appropriate to have a discussion with other members of the executive team at the same time so that there can be no confusion. But as I said, certainly by that line in your email, I did not feel it was appropriate for me to go naming you, considering at that point in time the Shire was your employer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan, for that explanation, and thank you, ma'am, for your 3 questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'd now like to ask Ms Kelly Berry to please come forward and ask her questions, please.
Kelly Berry, resident of the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. My first question is, what was the library budget for the 2023, 24 and 25 financial years, and how much of that was the local history budget?
Thank you for your first question, Ms Berry. I would like to ask the Director of Community Engagement to please provide a response.
Thank you, Ms Berry, for the questions. In 2022-2023, the library budget was $886,997, with $3,500 allocated to the local history budget. In 2023-2024, the library budget was $831,124, and $9,950 was allocated for the local history budget, and this was for the delivery of the inaugural SJ Remembers Community History Awards, which is planned to be delivered biannually. And in 2024-2025, the library budget is $852,977. As mentioned for the previous financial year, no budget was allocated for the local history program for this financial year, given that the SJ Remembers Community History Awards was proposed to be delivered again in 2025-2026. Despite this, there has been $1,476 spent on local history activities to date.
Thank you, Director. Ms Berry, would you like to ask your second question, please?
What were the library staff hours for the 23, 24 and 25 year-to-date, obviously, financial years, broken down by full-time, part-time and casual?
Thank you for your second question, Ms Berry. Again, I would ask the Director of Community Engagement to please provide a response.
Over the past 3 financial years, the library staffing levels are as follows. For 2022-2023, 4 full-time staff, 3.4 part-time staff and 0.75 casual staff. For 2023-2024, 3 full-time staff, 3.39 part-time staff and 0.7 casual staff, and for 2024-2025, 3 full-time staff, 3.27 part-time staff and 0.75 casual staff.
I was actually after the actual number of hours of working.
We'll have to take that on notice, Ms Berry, because I think the Director has provided that response. Are you happy with that, Director, or are you able to...
We were providing that response in regards to staffing levels of budgeted and allocated full-time, part-time and casual equivalent. So that is our response.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms Berry.
So I'm not going to get the actual number of hours worked by staff?
The Director just answered that question.
No, he told me how many staff members there were. He didn't tell me how many hours they were worked.
Okay, thank you, Ms Berry. We'll take that on notice.
Thank you.
I'd now like to ask Ms Eileen Davis to please come forward. And again, Ms Davis, if you'd please state your name and your suburb of residence, please.
It's Eileen Davis and I'm a resident of Byford. My questions are regarding Brickwood Reserve. Question 1, I have a concern regarding the wastewater treatment infrastructure continuing to degrade Brickwood Reserve. It's my understanding that Graceford will not be able to be connected to a sewer until Orton Road is complete. Does the Shire have a timeline when this will eventuate?
Thank you for your question, Ms Davis. I would ask the Director of Development Services to please provide a response.
Thank you, Mr President, and thank you for your question. The extension of urban utilities are associated with decisions of landowners to subdivide and develop. A large catalyst for subdivision in the area to the south of Byford will indeed be the extension of Orton Road. These works are being undertaken by developers and are currently scheduled to be completed during the next 12 to 24 months. There is still further extension of the sewer system required beyond Orton Road to facilitate connectivity to Gracefield, and until then the Shire will continue to monitor the situation at Brickwood Reserve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Ms Davis, would you like to ask your second question, please?
Yep. Question 2. I'm guessing this sewer connection will be quite some time. Meanwhile, might I suggest that the weed infestation on the north edge of the offset management area alongside the oval that is creeping into Brickwood Reserve needs much attention. That is mostly due to the water runoff and weed invasion from the oval. How will the Shire deal with this ongoing problem?
Thank you for your second question, Ms Davies. Again, I would ask this time I'll ask the Chief Executive Officer to please provide a response.
Thank you, Mr President, and thank you for the question. So the proposed agreement with the Public Transport Authority for the management of Brickwood Reserve includes an allocation to undertake weed control to address weeds in the whole reserve. To support this, we've recently engaged a contractor through a tender process to assist in the weed management in our reserves across the entire Shire, including Brickwood Reserve. So I understand it's one of the priorities that I'll be getting to as part of that.
Thank you, Mr.
But
C.
in saying that, Mr President, if Ms Davies has other suggestions, like the previous question person had, we're happy to work with the community and the Friends group to take on suggestions of how that can be managed and spent.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Would you like to ask your third question, please, Ms Davis?
So how would the Shire ensure that there is not an over-reliance on consultants to make sure the majority of the money goes towards active bushland on-ground restoration actions?
Thank you for your third question, Ms Davies. I would ask the Director of Development Services to please provide a response.
Thank you, Mr President, and thank you for the question. So the proposed Memorandum of Understanding contains Annexure B, which is a 20-year budget of specific line items of works to be undertaken, and certainly just reassuring you, we want to see the works undertaken on the ground, given the value of this local natural area to our community and to the broader region and state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Director of Development Services, and also on behalf of the Shire, can I just extend a thank you to yourself and everyone that's working so hard to protect Brickwood Reserve. It is noted by the community and the Shire, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, we have gone past our 15 minutes for question time. Can I get an indication from anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question that hasn't been submitted earlier today? Is there anyone who'd like to ask a question? There are at least two members of the public. Is there a councillor who is happy to extend question time by 15 minutes? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. You happy to second, Councillor Jarrett? Is there anyone opposed? So the motion is carried unanimously, and we'll extend it to 7:46, because I'm not too sure when it's 7:31. So let's make it 7:46. Thank you. Who would like to come forward first? Thank you, Ms Dunkley.
Good evening, everyone. Belinda Dunkley, resident Shire Serpentine Jarrahdale. My first question, has the Shire received any correspondence from anyone other than Ms Lafar-Smith from our community regarding the lack of library services information in the annual report?
Thank you for the question, Ms Dunkley. I'm not sure whether the Director can provide a response. We'd like to take on notice, Director, and that's Director of Community Engagement, just for the recording. Are you happy to answer a question, Director, or would you like to take on notice? Thank you. Thank you, Director.
I have personally been made aware of one email that has highlighted concerns about the library services not being explicitly referenced in the Shire's 2023-2024 annual report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Ms Dunkley, did you have another question?
Yes, I do. I have one more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the Shire acknowledge that within the state and local government agreement for the provision of public library services in Western Australia, that the Shire holds a responsibility to work towards achieving established benchmarks stated within the guidelines, standards and outcome measures for Australian public libraries, including support of the ongoing development of library services in Western Australia and the provision of physical and technological infrastructure, staffing and meeting operating costs to agreed standards?
Thank you for your second question, Ms Dunkley. Director, would you like to provide a response? Or Mrs CEO, did you want to? Director, thank you.
I'd like to take that question on notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Ms Dunkley.
Thank you.
No other questions? No. Was there another? I'm looking on the right-hand side of the room. Mrs Bond, would you like to come forward?
Do council employees use council vehicles for personal use? If so, how many vehicles are involved? What controls are in place to vet this personal use? Who pays for any damage to a vehicle or fines involving said vehicle when it is used for personal use? How many of the employees live in the Shire?
We might break that down, Mrs Bond. So the first question is pertaining to vehicles. Mr CEO, are you happy to provide a response in regards to employees?
Yes, if
vehicles?
Ms Bond can just repeat that first question. Happy to answer as many as we can, Mrs Bond, and then take others on notice.
Yep.
What was the first question, the first part of the question? Sorry?
That's all one question.
Can you please repeat the question, Mrs Bond?
Do council employees use council vehicles for personal use? If so, how many vehicles are involved? What controls are in place to vet this personal use? Who pays for any damage to a vehicle or fines involving said vehicle when it is used for personal use? How many of the employees live in the Shire?
So, Mr President, happy to try and answer the question. Thank you for the question, Mrs Bond. So there are typically three categories of vehicle usage applied to Shire officers. There's those that have private use in accordance with their employment arrangements, those that have commuting use, and then there's pool cars available as well. So the employees that have personal use are able to use the car in accordance with their employment contract, in accordance with the policy, and enjoy that benefit. The employees that have commuter use are only able to drive the car to and from work and not able to do anything outside of that unless they're on call, and sometimes cars are made available to some employees on call. And the other use is pool cars, which are stored in the back of the administration building and booked on that occasion. So if damage occurs to a car that's related to that, that gets investigated by our insurers, and that would need to be on a case-by-case basis. And if someone gets a fine, a speeding fine or something in that time, then they pay those fines themselves personally.
Thank you for that answer, Mr CEO. Mrs Bond, did you have another question?
Yep. Has the Oakford Fire Brigade contract been signed? If not, why not? Why is this matter back before council again? When is the building going to be given the tender and the contract signed? What is causing so much delay with this desperately needed building? And what is the meaning of design and construct variation, which I saw in the agenda?
Thank you for your, I was going to say your second question. I think it's your second question, Mrs Bond. Again, I would ask the CEO to please provide a response.
Thanks, Mr President. So the council awarded the tender for the design and construction of the Oakford Fire Station at the December council meeting. And since that time, officers have been actively involved with the successful tenderer to get the contract signed. We would like nothing more than the contract to be signed. And the matter is presented as a confidential item before council tonight for council to consider aspects of that, which hopefully will lead to the contract being signed. As it's a confidential item, I can't go into a lot more detail about that, other than to say that we are keen to see that resolved and the time frame agreed upon, and the design started and then the construction started after that.
Am I reading it incorrect in the agenda that it's being put out for tender again?
No. There's just a couple of matters that need to be considered by the council before the contract can be signed.
Thank you, Mrs Bond. Do you have a third question?
You know I do. Has the community reaction been sought with regard to item 10.4.1, lease of 172 Kiernan Street, Whitby, to Homeless We Care Serpentine Jarrahdale and surrounds, or will they be surprised and annoyed about not being consulted?
Thank you for that question. I'm looking towards the Director of Community Engagement, see if he can please provide a response. Thank you, Director.
Thank you. The officer's recommendation is that council notes the submission received from Homelessness We Care Serpentine Jarrahdale and surrounds, and point 2 of the officer's recommendation is to finalise the proposed disposition and sign the lease for the mentioned property to Rebecca Hodgson and Rodney Lee with the detailed terms that are stipulated in the officer's recommendation. Point 3 is for council to note that the Shire will continue to work with Homelessness We Care Serpentine Jarrahdale and surrounds to progress their vision for a dedicated home within the Shire. So if I've understood your question correctly, officers aren't recommending to lease the property to Homelessness We Care.
Thank you, Mrs Bond, for your questions. Public gallery, is there anyone else who would like to come forward and ask a question? Thank you. That being the case, I declare public question time finished now at 7:38 p.m. And just give you an update on our tech issues. We're not going to be able to live stream tonight, but you'll see that the screen is now working. So this meeting will only be audio recorded.
And Mr President, something's been placed on the website to reflect that.
Thank you, Mr CEO. That brings us on to agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 3 is public statement time. So public statement time will now commence at 7:39 p.m. And I'd like to ask Nick Hiding from Hiding Urban Planning, Subiaco, to please come forward and make their statement.
Thank you, Shire President. Good evening, councillors and staff. Nick Hiding Urban Planning, York Street, Subiaco.
Sorry, Mr Hiding, I've got to apologise. So did I say your name correctly? Hiding. I do apologise. That is a countdown. You've got 3 minutes for a statement. So, and you'll get one beep at the end. That's it. There's no warning.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hiding Urban Planning acts for Elite Constructions and the Forward in Faith Ministries in the matter of a place of worship proposal at 24 and 30 Nettleton Road in Byford. We've been assisting the project team in the progress of this application. That's item 10.1.1. My public statement tonight is really to support the project and seek the council to approve the application. We've reviewed the officer's report and note the recommendation for approval with conditions which we support. We thank the officers for that recommendation. The conditions we've also had a look at and confirmed that they're acceptable to our client. The officer's report sets out that the proposal is consistent with the planning framework and that the development can be appropriately managed with conditions. The site is zoned urban development at the moment under LPS 3, and there's a scheme amendment in place, or imminent scheme amendment to rezone the area to light industry, and the place of worship is capable of approval in both the urban development zone and the incoming light industry zone. The proposal satisfies traffic and noise matters as discussed in the officer's report, and there are recommended conditions also dealing with these matters. The project satisfies the car parking criteria and the landscaping requirements of the Shire as well. Overall, the application for the place of worship is worthy of approval, and we respectfully seek the Council's approval of the application consistent with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your statement. I'd now like to ask Mr Trevor Senior to please come forward and make his statement, which shouldn't be 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr Senior.
Trevor Senior, resident of Mardella. I'm with the Serpentine Historical Society and the lease for the Old Bridge School at Serpentine. Just a comment, page 110, second line. We'd like to have it recognised that volunteers contribute up to 200 hours per year, valued at $9,600.
Thank you for your statement, Mr Senior. It's very difficult to put a price on volunteers. I think you're priceless personally, and what you do is fantastic. But thank you very much, and we do apologise for the error in the agenda. Thank you for your statement. Ladies and gentlemen, is anyone like to come forward and make a statement from the floor? Thank you, Mrs Bond. You can go second. I'll ask Ms Dunkley to come forward and make her statement. And Madam Secretary, is that working okay, or are we good? We do apologise, we're trialling this, so we'll see how it goes. If it's too difficult, we'll look at something else. But thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Ms Dunkley.
Okay, thank you. So it's come to light since the general electors meeting that not only has the Shire neglected to include library services within the annual report, but it seems to have an agenda to close or significantly reduce library services. Prior to tonight, library staff have reached out to councillors in writing and were ignored. Members of the community have also reached out about library services to the Shire and have been dismissed. Staff have raised that they feel library services are in crisis. 3 staff members have resigned, 1 for mental health reasons. The disturbing part of this is the welfare of staff has been raised and not taken seriously. When the suicide rate in Western Australia is 14.3%, currently higher than the 11.8% Australian average, how is that acceptable? The well-being of Shire staff should be of the utmost importance. The library also, furthermore, the library budget was reduced so much that the zero balance to the local history budget is now adopted. Local history is the foundation of our community. Funding these projects ensures the valuable stories of our Shire are preserved and shared for future generations. Even though the Local History Award is not being delivered this year, there is still the need to fund these operations, as stated by the Director of Community earlier tonight, as happened in 2023. It seems the Shire has walked away from the responsibility of capturing the local history of the Shire. It's disgraceful. Every councillor here that accepted that budget should be ashamed, especially when you compare that to the increase in spending on communications for social media video production was increased by $202,549. That's a 28.9% increase. And you couldn't afford to fund local history preservation activities. Local government is not just about rates, roads and rubbish. It's also about providing services that create safe, livable and creative communities. If councillors do not understand that, then maybe you should not be sitting on council. What is more important, the well-being of staff and ability to collect and preserve the local history, or the propping up of the political ambitions of the councillors? Thank you.
Does anyone else like to come forward and make a statement? Thank you, Mrs Bond.
I come to meetings for genuine reasons, and I am sick and tired of the behaviour of some gallery members, as are others. When a member of the gallery continues to disrupt and incite others to disrupt these meetings, they must be removed from the chamber and, if necessary, suspended for a period of time. There can be no excuse for the habitual, repetitive, orchestrated behaviour. Now that it is in the public knowledge about a pesticide having the desired effect on the shothole borer, does the NDA signed by this council still have priority in keeping information suppressed, or will we now see the public informed? 10.1.1 has council considered carefully that places of worship, churches, do not pay rates like the rest of us, and more people want to register these to avoid the rates. Why do other people have to put up with the noise, the traffic, etc., and they have to pay rates for this intrusion? Why is item 10.6.1, Oakford Fire Brigade Fire Station, confidential? This has been 10 years plus trying to get this building built, and although the tender was awarded in 2024, here we are back where we were, muck that up. Here we are back again, requesting a tender all over again. Surely this matter cannot drag on any longer. Get the building built. We have heard for years now this matter has been urgent. If these delays continue, there will be such a blowout with the costs it will not get built for many years. If ever, stop procrastinating and get the contract signed immediately, and let's see this much needed station built and operating.
Thank you, Mrs Bond. Does anyone else like to come forward and make a statement? Thank you. That being the case, I declare public statement time concluded now at 7:47 p.m. That brings us on to agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4 is petitions and deputations. And I'd now like to ask Mr Henry Dykstra on behalf of Harley Dykstra regarding item 10.1.3, Scheme Amendment number 1, Lot 12, number 101, King Road, Oakford. Proposed additional use, please come forward and make his deputation. As I'm sure you are aware, Mr Dykstra, you've got 15 minutes for your deputation.
Thank you, President, councillors, staff, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present at this meeting in respect of item 10.1.3, and it's the scheme amendment relating to Lot 12 King Road in Oakford, and the amendment proposes an additional use that will allow the blending and processing of non-hazardous agricultural and mining products. Our client, Mrs Colleen Broad, is happy with the recommendation that's on the agenda, and that's the recommendation to support the proposed scheme amendment, and she would like to thank all of those who have been involved in this application and processing of the application to date. Councillors, the main purpose of this deputation is to reinforce the positive impact that the proposed additional use will have, in contrast to the existing long-established poultry farm operations on this site. Notably, the risk assessment that was prepared by Stratagen, the environmental consultants, that risk assessment demonstrates that the proposed additional use will result in a lower risk of contamination to the environment and to the Jandakot groundwater mound than the current poultry farm land use. The reduced risk is due to factors including ceasing the poultry shed washout activities that currently occur regularly, and decommissioning of infiltration pumps. It's also due to upgrading the existing infrastructure to bunded sheds and contained tanks to accommodate the blending, and that'll result in a closed system of operation. There's also the reducing the groundwater abstraction by approximately 80% from the current operations. Then there's ensuring that all storage, handling and blending will be contained within enclosed sheds, resulting in no dust, no noise, no odour or liquid escaping. There's reduced operational hours in contrast to the current daytime and nighttime activities of the poultry farm. This proposed change out of use, the additional use will be 8:30am to 5pm, so daylight hours only. And then finally, there's the factor of overall replacing the odorous poultry operations with an odourless blending operation within enclosed sheds and enclosed tanks. Finally, I'd just like to touch on the addition of condition number 4 within the scheme amendment, and that's been recommended by the Shire's planning team to retain that condition number 4. And that condition relates to the requirement to allow only blending materials that have been included within the stratagem report prepared in January 2022. We understand that the Shire wants to safeguard the risk of potential impacts due to the materials blended and processed on site. The stratagem report offers just one example of a list of non-hazardous chemicals, and the intention of that report was to demonstrate that the change of use would result in a reduced risk to the environment and to the groundwater mound when compared with the existing poultry farm. The list of non-hazardous chemicals was not intended to be an exhaustive list, it was an example, and we do appreciate the Shire's alternative option, which is that we're allowed to provide an updated stratagem report, and we've already reached out to stratagem to see if they can do that, where they'll be updating their report to refer to a broader set of non-hazardous chemicals, but they will be a broader set that complies with the risk criteria of the original report. And that's really just to give the client more flexibility to accommodate the needs of their customers over time as market demands and products change, but still complying with those risk criteria. So, councillors, that's all I have. Your support for the current officer recommendation is requested and would very much be appreciated, and I'm happy to answer any questions if councillors have that. So, with that, thank you, Mr President.
Thank you, Mr Dykstra. Thank you for your deputation. That brings us on to agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 5 is the President's report. So good evening and welcome to the April 2025 Ordinary Council meeting. This month, our Shire was once again recognised as WA's fastest growing local government, and that was according to the latest Australian Bureau of Statistics data. We're the only WA council to record growth above 5% in 2023 and 2024. And we are the third fastest growing local government in the country. It's an exciting time to be part of our Shire, but with that growth comes responsibility. We need government investment in our roads, infrastructure and community facilities to keep pace. Simply put, we can't afford to be left behind. That's why we continue to strongly advocate for projects that deliver real outcomes, from economic development and tourism to community health and wellbeing. We're seeing progress in key areas such as construction has started at the Goralong car park in Jarrahdale, helping to solve long-standing parking issues at Kitty's Gorge. And I'm really proud of the work the Shire did in relocating some grass trees from that area, and they'll be used and replanted within Jarrahdale. So I acknowledge the staff for the work they've done there. That will help solve long-standing parking issues at Kitty's Gorge and boosting tourism in the process. This project is part of the Peel Regional Trails Initiative, funded through an $8 million Australian government investment. Importantly, we've paired this work with strong environmental outcomes. As I said, grass trees over 100 years old are being carefully salvaged for future landscaping, and nesting boxes for endangered black cockatoos are being installed with support from Landcare, Serpentine Jarrahdale. So I thank members of Landcare. It's a great example of building for our future while protecting our environmental concerns and our environment today. In Byford, construction is now underway on the new bike pump track at Briggs Park, backed by $1.34 million in state government funding. Designed with community input, this facility will cater to all skill levels and become a welcoming hub for young people and families across the Shire. And certainly the young people I spoke to on Friday at the youth event, whilst a little bit frustrated with the time it's taken to build the facility, they're very, very excited by it. As a Shire that cares, we're also proud to continue our support for Riding for the Disabled Association in Oakford. With their lease extended for another 10 years, RDA Oakford delivers life-changing experiences to around 60 participants. Thanks to the dedication of their volunteers, if you're looking to get involved, no experience is needed, just a willingness to lend a hand. Early this month, Byford played host to the BMX State Series, attracting over 500 riders and more than 1,000 spectators, with competitors aged from 4 to 74. Yep, you read that right, 74. It was an inclusive and inspiring event. A big thank you to the incredible Byford BMX Club volunteers for bringing it all together. And next up, we're thrilled to support the 2025 Serpentine Jarrahdale Food and Farm Fest, taking place on the 3rd of May this year. Agriculture is the heart of our Shire. More than just an industry, it's our identity. This event is a fantastic celebration of local food, farming and the people who make it all happen. So I hope to see you all there. With the federal election also happening on the 3rd of May, I'd like to wish all candidates the very best. I encourage everyone to take part, have your say and help shape the future of our community in Australia. In closing, I would like to take the opportunity on behalf of the Shire and Council to pay tribute to Josh Sanford, a respected and well-loved member of operations team at the Shire who tragically passed away last week. Our thoughts and condolences are with his family at this difficult time. Thank you. That brings us on to agenda item number 6, which is declaration of elected members and officers' interest. The Chief Executive Officer, Mr Paul Martin, has declared a financial interest in item 8.1, Special CEO Employment Committee meeting, 7th of April 2025. The nature of his interest is he is the CEO and the Employment Committee of the CEO deals with matters relating to his employment. The extent of his interest is that he is the Chief Executive Officer. Councillor Nathan Bishop has declared impartiality interest in item 10.1.2, the Shire Drawdown of Development Contribution Plan DCP, Administration Costs from Development Contribution Administration DCA 3, Munijong Whitby Urban Traditional Infrastructure DCP. The nature of Councillor Bishop's interest is that he is a member of the Oakford Bushfire Brigade, which is indirectly impacted by this item. The extent of his interest is impartiality, as the decision may impact the Oakford Fire Station project. Councillor Tricia Duggan has declared impartiality interest in item 10.4.1, which is property disposal, lease of 172 Kiernan Street in Whitby. The nature of her interest is that she volunteers with Homelessness We Care. The extent of her interest is impartiality. Councillor Reece Jarrett has declared impartiality interest in item 10.4.7, Major Grant Scheme 23-24 Round 2, endorsement of acquittal. The nature of his interest is impartiality. The extent of his interest is he is a past president of the Serpentine Jarrahdale Food and Farm Alliance when his 3-year grant was submitted. When this 3-year grant was submitted. Councillor Reece Jarrett has also declared an impartiality interest in agenda item 10.4.1. As I said, that is impartiality interest. The extent of his interest is that his mother is on the board of Homelessness We Care, Serpentine Jarrahdale, and Councillor Jarrett also volunteers for the organisation. He is declaring impartiality interest. And the final one is Councillor Nathan Bishop has declared impartiality interest in item 10.6.1, confidential request for tender RFT 10-2024 Oakford Bushfire Brigade Station. The nature of his interest is that he is a member of the Oakford Bushfire Brigade to whom this item relates. The extent of his interest is impartiality as the decision impacts the project to deliver the new Oakford Fire Station. Mr CEO, I have not received any other declarations. Have you?
I haven't received any other, Mr President, but it's up to elected members or staff if they have any others to declare them, either now or when the items are considered.
Thank you, Mr CEO. That brings us on to agenda item number 7. Agenda item number 7 is confirmation of minutes of previous council meetings. 7.1 is ordinary council meeting of the 17th of March 2025. Is there a councillor who's happy to move the minutes from that meeting? Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mazzini. Is anyone opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. That brings us on to agenda item number 8. Agenda item number 8 is receipt of minutes or reports and consideration of adoption of recommendations from committee meetings held since the previous council meeting. Mr CEO is going to declare...
I've declared a financial interest, so I'm going to leave the room for this item, and the Director of Corporate Services is going to come and sit here.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Thank you, Director. 8.1 is a special CEO Employment Committee meeting of the 7th of April 2025. Is there a councillor who's happy to move the minutes from that meeting? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Councillor Duggan, you happy to second? Thank you. So it's moved Councillor Bishop, seconded Councillor Duggan. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Mr. CEO. The motion to accept the minutes were passed unanimously. That brings us on to agenda item number 9. Agenda item number 9 is motions which notice has been given and there are nil. That brings us on to en bloc. As part of the Shire's efforts to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of meetings, tonight's meeting will include the opportunity for matters to be considered by Council en bloc. This means that a group of matters dealt with in multiple reports can be grouped together, considered and voted upon as a single motion. Matters that are not to be included in block decisions are motions which require absolute majority, matters to be determined behind closed doors, declared interests made in relation to the item, and deputations or statements that have been made in relation to that item. Officers have prepared a list of matters that meet this criteria. I will now read these report numbers and titles and invite any elected member to identify any matters that they may wish to be removed from en bloc consideration. Removing a matter from en bloc consideration does not signify objection to a matter and does not require the matter to be debated. Removing a matter from en bloc simply means that the matter is to be considered separately. The matters that have been identified for consideration en bloc at tonight's meeting are as follows. 10.1.5, proposed amendments to council policy, mobile food vendors. 10.2.1, improving access to Serpentine town site for residents of Serpentine Lifestyle Village. 10.2.2, which is award request for tender RFT 12-2004 Project Management Services Capital Projects. 10.3.1 is confirmation of payment of creditors. 10.3.2 is monthly financial report February 2025. 10.3.4 is seek permission from Electoral Commission to allow elected member vacancy to remain unfilled until the ordinary local government election. 10.4.4 is a lease of part of St John's Ambulance Hall in Serpentine. 10.4.5 lease of part of Byford Child Health Clinic. 10.4.9 Local Emergency Management Committee Information Report. 10.5.1 award request for tender RFT 02-2025 SJ Waste and Recycling Services. 10.5.2 minutes of the Rivers Regional Council Ordinary Council meeting 26th of February 2025. Councillors, are there any other items on tonight's agenda, or those ones I've read out, you'd like to take off the en bloc? That being the case, can I have a councillor to move that those aforementioned items are passed en bloc? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. You happy to second Councillor Jarrett? Thank you. So moved by Councillor Bishop, second by Councillor Jarrett. Is there anyone opposed to that motion? The motion is carried unanimously. That brings us on to agenda item 10.1. Agenda item 10.1 is Development Services Reports. 10.1.1 is proposed place of worship at Lot 1, 24 Nettleton Road and Lot 8, 30 Nettleton Road, Byford. Is there a councillor who is happy to move a motion, whether it's the officer's recommendation or another motion in relation to this matter? Councillor Duggan, is that the officer's?
Happy to move officer's recommendation.
So Councillor Duggan is happy to move the officer's recommendation. Is there a councillor who is happy to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there anyone opposed? The motion is carried unanimously. That brings us to agenda item 10.1.2, the Shire Drawdown of Development Contribution Plan DCP administration costs from Development Contribution Administration DC A3, Munijong Whitby Urban Traditional Infrastructure. Is there a councillor who is happy to move a motion, whether it's the officer's recommendation or another? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is that the officer's recommendation?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Is there a councillor who is happy to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is there anyone opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. That brings us on to agenda item 10.1.3, Scheme Amendment Number 1, Lot 12, Number 101 King Road, Oakford, proposed additional use. Is there a councillor happy to move a motion in regards to this agenda item? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is that the officer's recommendation?
Happy to move officer's recommendation.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Is there a councillor happy to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is there anyone opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. That brings us on to agenda item 10.1.4, which is Brickwood Reserve Environmental Offset Proposal, Byford Rail Extension. Is there a councillor happy to move a motion in regards to this agenda item?
Mr President, could I ask a question?
You certainly can.
Consideration before looking at supporting a motion. This is a question to the Director of Development Services. Based on your research and the report from Curtin University, do you feel a transition zone would be appropriate and required as part of the planning consideration for Brickwood Reserve, considering it is a threatened ecological community, please?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Duggan. Director of Development Services, are you happy to provide a response, please?
Certainly, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for the question. Nutrient management in and surrounding Brickwood Reserve is definitely a very important issue for the Shire. We've maintained our recreational ovals for a number of decades, as well as Graceford Hostel's been a presence in the area for a number of decades. Curtin University have been directly engaged to essentially supervise the offset improvement strategies for the next 2 decades. So esteemed sort of experts in the field working really closely with Carl and Elaine as well, which is also very reassuring. I think letting them drive the best way of managing that rehabilitation and improvement is probably the safest way which we can proceed forward.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Director. Does that answer your question, Councillor Duggan, or do you have another question?
No, that does, and that's reassuring. I'm happy to move officer's recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a councillor happy to second? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there anyone opposed? Oh, so you got a question, or are you opposed,
Yeah, question, and I'll second the motion. I just want some reassurance that the concerns raised by Mr Titlis tonight, that within this MOU, we're not precluded from adopting, you know, what he might suggest is the best practice strategies. I just want to be reassured that there is scope to be flexible in what the management strategy is. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Director, are you able to provide a response, please?
Yes, certainly. Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. President. Yeah, I can certainly give you that assurance. This is, a 20-year partnership. We want Brickwood Reserve to be our iconic and pinnacle local natural area for many, many generations to come. So the issues, whether they're nutrient impacts, whether they're how we manage bushfire risk, how we control access, those are things that will need to be consistently and carefully done, for certainly time going forward.
Thank you, Director. Does that answer your question, Councillor Bishop?
Yes, thank you.
You happy to second?
Yeah,
Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Motion is carried unanimously. That brings on to agenda item 10.1.5, which was passed en bloc. Sorry, just for the recording, 10.1.5 was proposed amendments to council policy mobile food vendors, and as mentioned, that was passed en bloc. Agenda item 10.2 is infrastructure services reports. 10.2.1 is improving access to Serpentine town site for residents of Serpentine Lifestyle Village. That was passed en bloc. Agenda item 10.2.2, award request for tender RFT 12-2024 project management services capital projects. That item was passed en bloc. That brings us on to agenda item 10.3. Agenda item 10.3 is corporate services reports. 10.3.1 is confirmation of payment of creditors, March 2025. That was passed en bloc. Agenda item 10.3.2 is monthly financial report, February 2025. That too was passed en bloc. That brings us to agenda item 10.3.3. Agenda item 10.3.3, appointment of presiding members and deputy presiding members to the Audit, Risk and Governance Committee and the CEO Employment Committee. Before I call for a mover or a seconder, I did have a conversation with the CEO in regards to this item, and a councillor may wish to defer the matter if you're minded to consider another presiding member, simply because no councillors have indicated their willingness to nominate, and we certainly have not consulted with the two external members. So that being the case, a councillor can move to defer to consider those options, or they can move the motion as it is. So I'll call for a councillor to move a motion in regards to this.
Mr President, can I move to defer just so we get the opportunity to ensure that the other community members are aware, please?
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. I'll just make sure, after what I just said, and I'm looking at the CEO, there's no issues in deferring, and is there what's the time limit in relation to this matter?
Thanks, Mr President. The matter needs to be resolved by the 30th of June, so there is an opportunity to defer it if that's council has in mind for that. I might ask the Director of Corporate Services to help us with some wording so that we can achieve what Councillor Duggan's wanting.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mr President. So the idea of deferring was if we wanted to choose different from the status quo. In other words, if there was a mind to choose one of the independent members as the chair or something like that, it wasn't. If the status quo was to remain, it wouldn't be required to consult.
Sorry, can I just ask a follow-up question on that? What does the new legislation say we need to... We've already appointed a chair, and my understanding that was an absolute majority. I think it was unanimous. So what's the change with the legislation?
No, so the office bearers were appointed by the committee. Now those office bearers, the chair and the deputy chair, need to be appointed by council. And so that's the new requirement, is that council make that appointment rather than the actual committee members.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Duggan, did you have another question? Are we happy to stay with your motion that you're moving?
Do we know if the other community members of the committee are aware of this?
Thank you for the question, Director. Can you provide a response?
I have not consulted with them. And so the answer to that is I'm unsure.
I'd like to push forward with a deferment then, please, just so that we have that opportunity to ensure that the community members are aware of this appointment and have the opportunity to put their names forward if they choose to.
Can I just help Councillor Duggan out with some wording? So the draft that's on the screen there has the question being adjourned to the next meeting. If you'd like us to do something like consult with the members, seek nominations, something else, then the wording could be changed to defer it to allow for that to occur. So maybe I might look to the Director of Corporate Services again if he's got some suggestions for some wording that might be there, so that we could take some direction from that if the council wanted to seek nominations from members or do something else, or advise members of the committee about the process.
All of those words would be suitable.
Thank you, Director.
If I could please have it that, in accordance with Standing Orders Local Law 2002, as amended, clause 11(1)(b), that the question be adjourned to the May ordinary council meeting, and request the CEO consult with external members regarding these appointments.
Thank you, Director. Can you...
Well, are you seeking nomination or just their views, or...?
Either. I think that it's important that they're given the opportunity. If they, I mean, we're relying on them reading this to know that these positions are available.
Mm-hmm.
We can't be sure that they have, so it's to consult with external members regarding the renominations. I think that's sufficient because we're making them aware that there is the opportunity for them.
To ensure. about members are provided with all the options, are provided with all the options, rather than the opportunity, just all the options. So are provided with all, take out from after with available to them.
Yep, I'm happy with that, thank you.
Can I ask a question before I call for a seconder? The issue this has come to council is because council needs to endorse the appointment. When this was made by the committee, wasn't it that every single councillor was already on that committee? So what's the difference?
It's a technicality. So a committee meeting is not a council meeting.
Yep.
It's purely the fact that all councillors are members of these committees. It's still, this is the OCM. You'll notice the gallery is more substantial. The law is the OCM makes this decision, not the committee.
And my next question is, sorry, I should have thought about this at the Q&A. Were there any other nominations for the presiding member of either of the committees? I know for the CEO Employment Committee there wasn't, but was there another nomination from either Mr Corelli, and I note that he is a deputy, or Miss Newby for the presiding member of the Audit, Risk and Governance?
Are you referring to the meeting at their original appointment? I don't recall.
Okay. Okay, is there a seconder? Is there a councillor who's happy to second the motion as it is? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there anyone opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. And we will need a... Thank you, Mr CEO. We'll need a difference to the officer's recommendation for that, and that is for both the CEO Employment and the Audit, Risk and Governance. That's correct, isn't it? Yeah. And Councillor Duggan will just need a reason for the difference.
Sorry, I'm getting there, I'm just writing it out. To allow all affected members to be informed of the new regulations.
All affected members?
To be informed of the new regulations. And offered positions if, this last bit's hard. If request, yeah, if, offered the opportunity for positions, thank you. And offered the opportunity for positions. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Bishop.
That brings us on to agenda item 10.3.4. 10.3.4 is seek permission from the Electoral Commission to allow elected member vacancy to remain unfilled until the ordinary local government election. That was passed en bloc. That brings us to agenda item 10.4. Agenda item 10.4 is community engagement reports. Agenda item 10.4.1 is property disposal lease of 172 Kiernan Street, Whitby. I do apologise profusely to councillors. I did mention at the Q&A and I did circulate an alternate motion after telling people off last week at 6:06, and the alternate is, which I'm happy to move, that council requests the Chief Executive Officer present the property disposal of 172 Kiernan Street, Whitby to a future policy concept forum. Is there a councillor happy to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. You got a question?
I'm happy to second, Mr. President, but could we consider putting a time frame around the PCF?
Absolutely. And I might seek some guidance either from the CEO or the Director of...
So, Mr. President, the only PCF available in April is on the 28th, and that's already fully booked, so maybe a PCF in May could be an option.
Would that come before the...
Could come back to council by June then.
So it have to be OCM, June OCM? Yep. So if we can please, Madam Secretary, add... Council requests the Chief Executive Officer to present the property disposal of 172 Kiernan Street would be to a future policy concept forum before... How many days in May? Before the 31st of May. Are you happy with that, Mr. CEO, or do you think it should be before the June OCM? The intent would be for it to come to the June OCM.
So you can say by the 31st of May, Mr. President, that'll be fine. By the 31st of May.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Are you still happy with that, Councillor Bishop, second? Is there any councillor opposed to that alternate motion?
We just need to get the mover and seconder in the motion. So President Cole seconded Councillor Bishop.
Bishop. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Is there anyone opposed to that alternate motion? Motion is carried unanimously, and the reasons... Reason for difference, officer's recommendation is to allow options to be considered for the property. Just to allow options to be considered for the property. Thank you, Madam Secretary. That brings us on to agenda item 10.4.2. 10.4.2 is the lease of Serpentine Old Bridge School Building Reserve. Is there a councillor who's happy to move a motion in regards to this agenda item? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is that the officer's recommendation?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. And is there, Councillor Bishop, you have a second? Thank you. Is anyone opposed to it, that motion? So is Councillor Bishop seconded? Anyone opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. That brings us on to agenda item 10.4.3, which is the lease of the Jarrahdale Old Post Office Building at 631 Jarrahdale Road, Jarrahdale. Is there a councillor happy to move this motion or a motion? Sorry, Mr. CEO.
Mr. President, just before that happens, as per my email distributed today, there's just we just used the wrong word in the officer recommendation. The report, as it was written, published, said Jarrahdale Historical Society. It should be Jarrahdale Heritage Society. So it's been changed there. You can see in the yellow. Just wanted to point that out to elected members before the matter was considered. Nothing else has changed.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. That being the case, is there a councillor happy to move this motion? Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. You have a second, Councillor Duggan?
Yes,
so moved, Councillor Jarrett. Seconded, Deputy President, Councillor Duggan. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. That brings us on to agenda item 10.4.4. Agenda item 10.4.4 is the lease of part of St John's Ambulance Hall, Serpentine. That has been moved en bloc. That brings us to agenda item 10.4.5, which is lease of part of the old Byford Child Health Clinic. That too has been moved en bloc. Agenda item 10.4.6 is the outcome of review of the Shire's current policies for grants, scholarships and awards for youth and students living or studying in the Shire. Now, there is an alternate motion that Councillor Mazzini has circulated. Councillor Mazzini, would you like to move that motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Can you just make sure that you're happy with it as it is on the screen?
Perhaps for the benefit of the gallery and the recording, Councillor Mazzini, you could advise of the changes from the difference from the officer recommendation.
I'm happy to do that. I'm just going to read the red sections if that's okay. So changes to point 2 of option 2. So adopts the revised council policy community contributions as with attachment 2 with the following amendments. Point A, the school book award program heading to be updated to the school book award and education supplies program, and the following content of the section to be updated to read. Each year the Shire will provide a school book award to each primary school within the Shire to the value of $50 and a $100 stationery supply gift card to each high school. All schools will be invited to receive a school book award and or K-12 schools, and education supplies gift cards are provided by the Shire, which is to be presented at their annual school graduation or presentation event. The Shire's school book award and stationery supply gift card is to be presented by the Shire President or their nominated representative. Point B, the Youth Mentor Program section to be updated to read, residents who live, work or study in the Shire and are aged between 12 and 25 and have an employment or education goal they want to achieve and would benefit from mentoring are eligible to receive up to $1,000 towards a mentorship program. A formal acquittal process of the experience is to be submitted within 2 months of completing the mentorship program. Only one successful application per person is submitted. And then my added point 4, requests the Chief Executive Officer present a report to Council in April 2026 outlining the uptake of the programs within the Council policy community contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mazzini. Are you happy with how it's written on the screen?
I am, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a councillor who's happy to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there anyone opposed? Motion. You're opposed, Councillor Jarrett? Or a question?
I just have a question.
Certainly.
In regards to point B, where it says residents who live, work or study in the Shire, are we concerned that this could exclude individuals that study at a university or a TAFE, considering we don't have any tertiary facilities in our Shire? Should it be a different word to minimise confusion in the future?
So I'm happy if you want to ask that question directly to Councillor Mazzini.
Thank you. We did have school initially. We made that change to, I thought, would include uni or TAFE students, but I'm looking to the Director for some advice for further clarity if we should go back to the original. I was also thinking that if we did happen to have an outstation of a TAFE university in years to come, then that would make sure that was included, was sort of my intention of the change, but I'm happy to either go back to the original or accept some other wording if you have any ideas, Director or Councillor Jarrett.
Did you have another question or did you want to get some advice on that, Councillor Mazzini?
With regards to the officer's recommendation and the marked up version of the policy, it was written to read residents who live, work or go to school in the Shire and are aged between 12 and 25. So my understanding is that that wording limited it to only school-based, students. With reading the alternate from Councillor Mazzini, you are correct that it would, exclude opportunities for TAFE and or university, given that those opportunities don't exist in the Shire. But if I could maybe have a couple of minutes to think about how that wording could be improved to, I'm assuming, reflect the intent of what Councillor Mazzini is trying to achieve.
While the Director's doing that, was there another question? I thought I saw another hand somewhere. No? Okay. I might ask another question while the Director's looking at that up to Councillor Mazzini. What's your thoughts of the age between 12 and 25?
I think that we do have a lot more mature age TAFE and university students these days, and that's why I'm relatively happy with the age range. But if you have any other ideas or comments, I'd be happy to hear them.
I guess the only other question I then have is employment. So you've got a 25-year-old who's employed in the Shire. Hypothetically, I don't want to get into debate, but I'll try and put it as a question. They might be working part-time at the Munajong Hotel, serving behind the bar, and they want to have a mentor to do something completely different to that. How would that work?
I don't think we should preclude opportunities because of a part-time job, is all I'll say on that.
Sorry, Director, you...
Mr. President, in consultation with Councillor Mazzini, some suggested deletion of words for point B would be deleting the comma and the words work or study. So it would be residents who live in the Shire and are aged between 12 and 25 and have an employment or education goal they want to achieve. I think that would assist in achieving the intent of the youth mentor program, so it wouldn't preclude young people who maybe have an educational goal they want to achieve, which may exist outside of the Shire.
Thank you, Director. Did you have a comment, Mr. CEO?
Just if Councillor Mazzini was happy with that, the seconder would need to be happy with that change as well. That's a good suggestion, I think.
I'm happy with that if Councillor Jarrett is happy with that.
I thought Councillor Bishop seconded it.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, Mr. President.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Bishop? I will call. Is anyone opposed to it? I am opposed to it, but there's very specific reasoning behind that. So we'll go to debate. Councillor Mazzini, do you want to open debate?
Thank you, Mr. President. As most councillors would be aware, I do have quite a keen interest in the youth and families sector in the Shire. This interest comes from having a young daughter myself and that I am a pre-service high school teacher. Much of our Shire, especially in Byford, is made up of first home buyers and young families, including myself. Director Trossick and the President alluded to some of these statistics before that came through last week from the ABS, including that SJ is the fastest growing local government in WA and the third in the country based on percentage terms. There's a net natural increase of 20%, so plenty of babies being born. And we expect to surpass a population of 40,000 sometime in this calendar year. This has been the situation of the Shire for some time, and with this knowledge, I asked if the Shire staff could bring some information regarding the current youth services the Shire offers to a policy concept forum, and then any other ideas the staff had to improve and enhance these services and do some comparisons with local governments. So firstly, thank you to the staff for bringing both that information to the workshop and the report that's been prepared for tonight. Some of the feedback I want to draw on from the consultation with our young people is school supplies are not easy to access, a need for travel support to attend programs or courses that are relevant to future development due to a lack of public transport, and the need for mentoring or tutoring services. I want to start by discussing the mentorship program that staff have proposed. To be completely honest, I also wasn't exactly sure how this would work in practice, but after looking at the comparative program at the City of Kwinana and drawing on the feedback regarding the mentoring and public transport that I just spoke about, I can see why it's been included. And I trust that this was curated by the youth staff, that they have students in mind that they would work with who they would know would benefit from this program. The main change I've made there is the change of the policy would be one mentorship per person rather than per financial year. The portion of the report that I really resonated with was the new initiative regarding youth awards. Awards given at school do tend to be given to those who just excel academically or have the time and means to participate in a number of extracurriculum activities. The youth team proposing awards to young people in the Shire for a range of categories is excellent, and hopefully the praise and recognition will encourage those young people and others to keep striving towards their goals. The book awards I still think are really important for our primary school students, but I believe that education supply vouchers, and just for some clarity, I'm thinking like an Officeworks voucher or something along those lines, for high school students would be very helpful for students in the current economic climate families have found themselves in. I've requested a 12-month review of the youth programs and new initiatives to see how they progress and what the uptake is like. So basically to think of this as a trial period, and necessary changes can be made as needed or cancelled if the need is not there. I know this debate is probably going to revolve around money and is this an appropriate use of ratepayer funds? The Shire needs to be investing in our young people, and although this is the most incredibly cliche statement ever, they are the future of our community. We are committed to being a thriving, livable and connected Shire, and I believe these programs and the initiatives tick all these boxes, ensuring that our young people know that they're being supported by their Shire and helping to remove any financial barriers to succeed and reach their goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mazzini. Councillor, do you want to speak or reserve?
I'll reserve, thanks, Mr. President.
The only reason I'm opposed to it as it is I have some concerns specifically about the Youth Mentor Program. And notwithstanding the fact of what we've already heard about it being workshop, or policy concept forum, which was a good thing, I also have some concerns specifically about the cost. And if we're going to do $1,000 per student, and we're allocating $10,000, it means there's only 10 students across the Shire that will benefit from that. The other part I'm concerned about, well, there's probably two parts of it. One is the age group, and it was interesting at the Youth Fest on Friday afternoon. It was an event, and obviously someone has come up with a definition of youth being 12 to 25. And I'm not going to argue that because obviously some bureaucrat has said that's what youth is. But I question the appropriateness of that. And the feedback I've received from the youth event on Friday was that there was younger people in the 12 to 13, 14 age group that were too scared to go to the event because they were worried about youth, being 24, 25-year-olds being there. So I commend the motion except for the youth mentoring program. I have some concerns about only 10 students benefiting from it, and it may well be someone who's 25-year-old who has employment in the Shire, who wants a mentoring to further their employment, which is possibly a good thing, but that employment may then lead them to leave the Shire. I would be more minded to have something as a traineeship that actually gets them mentoring to get them a job that they are kept within the Shire, and perhaps even a traineeship through the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. So we get a quantifiable benefit from it, as opposed to a person. I use the example, probably a little bit flippant, but you might have a 24-year-old who's working at the bar at the Munajong Hotel who wants to get into real estate. So we give them $1,000 mentoring to go and work with a real estate agent, and then we lose them from the area, they go and do something else. I think the intent behind it is sound, but I'd like it to be a little bit more specific, and it'd be very interesting to see what the uptake is. It'd be very interesting to see what need there is within the community, because we're saying, are there 10 people already identified? And if there is only 10 people identified, that is obviously from the youth services team, which is a very, very captive audience, because I don't know what the numbers are, but certainly when I popped into the youth centre, there's probably 10 to 20 kids there, probably all from the same area. So is this going to capture young Johnny from Jarrahdale, or young Johnny from Hopeland, or the young fellow that I see at the markets, young Lincoln, who's homeschooled and is here very, very interested in beef and cattle and butchering? How does he then benefit from this? And I think it needs to be more targeted. So I would foreshadow some more work around the Youth Mentor Program and make it only for 6 months to see how it is taken up, and to reduce the age from 12 to 18, or even just students of an education facility within the Shire up to the age of 18. The rest of it, I think, has merit. I'm just concerned about the ambiguity around the youth mentoring program. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for the motion? Did you want to? You did reserve, Councillor Bishop. Would you like to speak?
Yes, I'll speak. Thanks, Mr. President. Simply, I agree with much of what you've said around potentially tightening this concept. I'm not necessarily persuaded to do that at this stage, and I think that if we could extend an opportunity to 10 people in the Shire to undergo this mentorship program, that is a good step to take. I'd reflect by saying that today's young people belong to the first generation that in terms of their future are worse off than their parents. And if this initiative happens to take a person working in Mundajong and propel them to bigger, better heights, I think that's a good step for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak against the motion? Councillor Mazzini, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. President. I understand your reservations, and there's points that I do agree with, but I think just giving that year trial period to hear back is what's important here, and I'd like to see the program have some time to see how it goes. So yeah, I think especially the mentorship program would be really important to our young people, and just giving them the opportunity to, especially that age range, 12 to 25, I still think if we were to limit it, it would be precluding opportunities, and I think, yeah, we should give it a go for a year. Thank you.
Before I call for people to vote on it, I have a question. The question is, who determines the successful applicants?
If the policy is adopted and budget is allocated in the 25-26 budget for the new initiatives, then grant application guidelines will be developed and they will be administered by the relevant service team, and given that the new initiatives relate to youth, that would be the youth development team, so the relevant coordinator and team manager.
Yep. Thank you. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? Motion is carried. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1? 4. Councillors, we've got 6, haven't we?
4, 2, I thought.
No, I voted for it.
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Councillor Mack was the only one that voted against.
Right.
And Councillor Mazzini will need a reason for difference.
Reason for difference, adjustments made for consistency throughout policy document. And to enhance. And extend current youth services.
You happy with that wording on the screen, Councillor Mazzini?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Councillor Mazzini. That brings us on to agenda item 10.4.7, Major Event Grant Scheme 23-24 Round 2, endorsement of acquittal. Is there a councillor happy to move a motion? Councillor Duggan, you happy to move?
I'm happy to move
The officer's recommendation?
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there a councillor happy to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Mazzini. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. That brings us on to agenda item 10.4.8. Agenda item 10.4.8 is prioritisation of community infrastructure projects. Is there a councillor happy to move this motion or a motion pertaining to this agenda item? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is that the officer's recommendation?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to it? Oh, sorry, is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. 10.4.9 is Local Emergency Management Committee Information Report. That was passed on block. 10.5 is Executive Services Reports. 10.5.1 Award Request for Tender RFT 02-2025. Serpentine Jarrahdale Waste and Recycling Services. That was passed on block. That brings us to agenda item 10.5.2. Agenda item 10.5.2 is minutes of the Rivers Regional Council ordinary meeting 26th of February 2025. That was passed on block. That brings us to agenda item 10.6, confidential reports. 10.6.1 is confidential request for tender RFT 10-2024 Oakford Bush Fire Brigade Station. Can I please have a member of council close the meeting and go behind closed doors? Happy to move it, Councillor Jarrett. Happy to second, Councillor Bishop. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. I would respectfully ask the three members of the gallery to please leave. The first one being agenda item 10.6, confidential reports. 10.6.1 was confidential request for tender RFT 10-2024 Oakford Bushfire Brigade Station design and construct variation. Motion was passed unanimously. It was as per the officer's recommendation. I'm just thinking, due to the lateness of the hour, I should read out the whole motion, but do I need to, Mr CEO, for governance?
Yes.
Okay. So Council 1 notes the technical analysis undertaken by officers as detailed in the financial implications section of this report regarding the proposed changes and the potential variation, and determines that they are necessary for the project and agrees that the variations are minor, considering the overall project requirements under Regulation 20 subsection 1 of the Local Government Functions and General Regulations 1996. Accepts that a significant portion of the cost increase is attributable to the passage of time, and these are reasonable under the circumstances and still represents the best value for money and the most advantageous outcome. 3, endorses an adjustment to the contract value for RFT 10-2024 Oakford Bushfire Brigade Station design and construct, increasing the contract sum to reflect the revised scope of works, e.g. removal of acoustic attenuation barrier and cost escalation, subject to final negotiations and funding availability. Authorises the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate and execute a contract with Cloudbreak WA Proprietary Limited, ABN 4963365459, to incorporate the agreed scope adjustments, ensuring project delivery within approved budget constraints. 5, notes that the project remains aligned with the Shire's strategic objectives and funding arrangements. 6, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate with the Department of Fire and Emergency Services for the funding contribution amounts to delivery of the project between the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale and the Department of Fire and Emergency Services. 7, requests the Chief Executive Officer to present a report back to Council at the conclusion of the detailed design phase on the final funding arrangements. And 8, requests the Chief Executive Officer to provide a brief update on the project status and outcome to both the Brigade and key stakeholders, including the lead petitioner of the petition tabled at the 9th December 2024 Ordinary Council meeting. 9, notes the indicative delivery timeframe for the project with the following key milestones. A, final cost and contract negotiations to be completed within 10 working days by the 2nd of May 2025. Then B, execution of contract within 15 working days following completion of negotiations by the 27th of May 2025. And C, construction completion is scheduled for December 2026. 10, endorses a project schedule, reaffirms its commitment to delivering the project with the outlined timeframes, and acknowledges that any material variation will be referred to the Council for consideration and determination. And as I said, that was carried unanimously. 10.6.2, let's read out the title. 10.6.2, was confidential recruitment of Director Infrastructure Services. Council resolution that Council approves the organisational structure comprising 5 directors, including Corporate Services, Development Services, Community Engagement, Infrastructure Services and Operations. 2, notes the CEO will commence recruitment for the Director of Infrastructure Services as a senior employee and will present a report to Council as part of the recruitment process in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. 3, notes the Chief Executive Officer will appoint the current Executive Manager Operations to be the Director Operations for a 5-year period. That brings us on to agenda item number 11, which is urgent business, which there is nil. Agenda item number 12 was elected member questions, of which notice has been given. There is nil. Agenda item 13 is closure. I declare the April OCM closed at 9:16 p.m. and thank all members of the gallery for staying back. Staff and councillors, please have a good evening. Drive safe, and I look forward to seeing you all on the Anzac Day service, lest we forget.